I need to talk about Omori, and this is gonna be hard to talk about because
Ooh.
there's certain things in life that come by, and you're like, I would never spoil this to anyone. Like, you gun to my head, I would not deprive you of what this story slash game actually is. Um, so that's tough. It's like 13 Sentinels, where it's like, okay, time has passed. I'm in a room with three people who finished it. I will now utter a single plot thread that happens, and
Yeah,
we'll
like
go from there.
it's just immoral to spoil something like that, you know?
And it's also tough, and I'll lead with like recommending this game is incredibly hard because of how the game works. It's like I don't know. Tyler hasn't even played Mother 3 despite all his actual gaslighting. Bradley would probably get bored of certain parts, and Joe,
No.
I don't know if Joe just like he just doesn't like indie games, to be honest. So it's like I feel like it's just not gonna work for any of y'all or any friend I have. So it's like, oh, it's so
I saw
frustrating.
you play a little bit of this game. I was
Did
asking you questions.
Did
You're
you think
laughing
that
at it.
section was cute-ish at least?
I thought that section was interesting. Like, it definitely had my attention. For
Okay,
sure.
there's hope out there in this world because
And then I started throwing out very sad theories to Willard's, like, what if it ends like this? Because he told me a little bit of like what was going on.
let me tell you the premise because that's not spoilers.
Yeah.
Omori is the next in line of the great lineage of Earthbound games.
Yes.
So you got Earthbound Mother 3, Lisa, Undertale, Homebound, whatever that, Eastward, the one that people didn't like, a Deltarune. And now you have Omori. I
Yeah.
will lead by saying Omori's easily the best child of Earthbound. And I'll get into the reasons why in a little bit. So it's the quirky RPG, and a lot of it takes place in a non-realistic Earth Undertale style realm, and that's the portion that Joe saw. A lot of the story is then taking place in what I'm going to call the real world right now, that is suburban America. And your character is Omori when you're in that kind of make-believe fun realm, and then you're Sunny when you're out in what I'm calling the real world, right? And you start to piece together that Sunny is just an older Omori, and the group of friends that you're hanging out with in what's called the headspace is no longer friends now that you're out in the real world. And the game bounces back between you waking up from headspace, going through a real world day, and then going back to headspace, and you bounce back and forth. And you start to piece together why this friend group fell apart and what the dynamics are. And the reason why I think this game really stands out from the quirkier games like Undertale and Deltarune is that the characters and the dialogue, despite the game having ridiculous little areas in the headspace, when you get down to it, the characters and the dialogue are super well fleshed out and down to earth. Nothing feels like a Papyrus. Very like, let's look at some good Undertale characters like Papyrus or Sans or like Alphys or fucking Undyne. These characters are just not really like realistic people. You know, like I don't. Is that a hot take to say? I think they're like very cartoonish. They're very over the top, but they're fun.
I mean, they're monsters. One of them straight up a fish.
Sure, yes. So, I guess in the counter argument to that, the characters in Omori are extremely human. Like, despite all the nonsense that's happening while you're in the gameplay sections, the characters are superhuman. The dialogue they exchange with each other feels right, and I think that goes a long way in getting me more invested in the story. There's combat in this game. I had no fucking... First of all, I went into this game completely blind, which is the best way to do it. I'm already doing a disservice. There's combat in this game. The combat system's actually quite fun. Now, I'll go into it a little bit. There's an emotional triangle where like you can inflict emotions on yourself or enemies, and the way it works is like sad beats happy, happy beats angry, and angry beats sad. And each different emotion has a different thing. Like if you're happy, you're faster and have more crit chance, but you will miss attacks more often. If you're angry, you do more damage but take more damage. And if you're sad, you have heightened defense, but whenever you get hit, some of your MP is taken instead of HP. And then the skills you get interact with those things in different ways. So, like, Aubrey, one of your party members, might have an ability where she can make herself and an ally happy. Or Cal has an ability where you can annoy someone. Or Omori can have an ability called Mock, where if someone's angry, he can lower their attack stat. And, like, you start making these little strategies about being like, okay, best way to handle this is I'm going to turn the enemy into this emotion. I'm going to turn Omori and Kel into this emotion. And then we're going to use these attacks that synergize with this, like, entire system. So it gets really addicting. Now, the thing with this game and why I'm finding it hard to recommend is that despite everything I just said about the gameplay portion, which is the headspace portion, is by far the worst part of the game. Not that it's bad. You compare it, though, to the stuff in the real world when you're in suburbia, where there is basically no combat or RPG mechanics, but that goes to, like, it's a testament of the writing when those are the parts that you are begging to get back to because they're so good. The combat, the thing that makes the headspace portions, like, kind of, like, not as good is that, like, while the exploration's super fun, every dungeon that you go to in this game is at least 1/3 too long, and that adds up when you have 4-ish dungeons that you have to go through, and you just want to get back to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the review portion, and why, like, it's hard to recommend it to people. But, like, this is an incredible game. It took them 7 years to make this, and the last few hours of this game are arguably the best hours I've had in any game. And that's where it's tough, right? Where it's like, oh my god, this dungeon's too long. But then you get to, like, this end stretch, it's like, this is peak fiction. Like, it goes beyond video games. Like, when you find out the dynamics and the reasons why this friend group break up, it is insanity. Like, you can't fully be prepared for it no matter what. And then, like, the final stretch of the game gets so emotionally dark that I've cried in one other video game, and that was Mother 3, and that's like, not even the first time playing it. And I cried, I teared up a little bit. The final boss in this game not only is now the best final boss of any game I've played, beating out Mother 3 and Monster Hunter Kingdom Hearts, all that. It also, like, there was moments where I was, like, having a panic attack because I was like, oh god, why is this still going? Why are we saying the things we're saying? I'm tearing up. It's late at night. I just want to go to bed. Like, it hit me so hard.
It's a cute game for nice children.
It is not this game. You boot up this game and it floods you with trigger warnings, and you should heed them if you are actually triggered by these things.
So you came out of this like you came out of Steven Universe Future, where it's like, don't expect me to be happy for the next few days.
I have watched the ending sequence. Any person who has played this game, I have scoured YouTube to get their reactions of the last bits.
Oh my god, I love that kind of game.
I'm running out of reactions and I'm getting really sad. Like, I just can't find enough.
Damn.
Yeah, like, this is an insane game. People have some negative takes on the ending. I disagree. It's one of those fan bases where it's like, it's not a super annoying fan base like Undertale can be sometimes, but, like, the direction the memes take, I feel like, are missing the themes of the story a little bit. But maybe that's how people cope. Yeah, like, man, that final boss is, and maybe it won't hit people because, like, I have primed them to expect something cool. It just came out of nowhere for me, and when the truth hits in this game, it hits harder than anything I've seen in almost any story. It is super interesting. It's the only that I made the main character my current Discord emote. I've been sitting on Nika Luffy, which has been peak emote or peak Discord avatar for a while. And he'll come back when Luffy does it again in the manga, of course.
Of course.
But yeah, I love these characters so much. They hard carry the game, and that's like a game where the gameplay is fun. So, if you do pick this up, and you ever feel like the gameplay sections are dragging, just remember that I was also there, and I was also annoyed, and I came out the other side very happy.
Well, you know what? I think this was going on must play for me because like I've always been a little interested in it, but after getting the Willer review, I think I'm more optimistic about it. And man, like 7 years in development, I remember back in college, like one of my favorite music artists, Bo In. The only reason I know who he is that they used one of his songs for the first ever trailer for the game.
Yeah, the music's kind of a bop in this game too. There's some really good tracks. I will also say the game is massive. I beat it in 20 hours without doing almost none of the side content. I know a lot of people can go 40 or 60 in this. I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's big to the point of bloated, but it just shows the amount of passion they wanted to put into this world. Like, the stuff you can do in the real world and the headspace sections go way beyond what the main story requires you, and I can also safely say you don't have to do any of it to get the emotional gut punch, as long as like you're paying attention to the characters, their development, kind of like the underlying themes, the mysteries that the game are planning. So you do have to pay attention a little bit, but the game will explain it all to you by the end in the most spectacular fashion. If you guys are even remotely interested, please pick it up then. And just remember what I said about like just push through. Particularly, there's a portion called Sweetheart's Castle. That is, God, that is the low point. It's just like, it's so long. I was laughing like the whole time. Don't get me wrong. And the final boss of that castle is a bop. But I was like, oh, okay, next section. Let's keep going.
How long is the game?
I beat it in 20.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, and you could go a little faster. And again, I think the combat's quite fun and pretty inventive. I know there's like a person I saw play who always plays RPGs by making himself as overpowered as possible, and then be like, yeah, there wasn't much to the game. It's like, my brother in Christ, you grinded for the ultimate weapons that no one's gonna get because they're so out of the path. So it is what it is.
Don't you love it when you get to the Monster Hunter World review and like, there's not enough content, and you look and they say 250 hours played?
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, yeah, exactly. He did everything. It's like, yeah, you know, and he loved the game either way. But this is like, it lives in my head in the 13 Sentinels-esque way. The thing is, like, I think 13 Sentinels is like never has a true dull point. It's a very consistent, well-paced experience, while Omori is like, Omori has like a equally as good, it has probably a better story just because of like the level of writing, while I would say that 13 Sentinels has the more ambitious story, of course, but like the ending is just that good, right? But it does have like Sweetheart's Castle, where it's like, I don't know if I want to replay for the other route if I have to go through Sweetheart's Castle again. It's that kind of thing. Also, the alternate endings of this game are very good. Do not play for them. Look them up on YouTube. It's just like, there's just not enough incentive to go through the entire journey, and there's no good checkpointing. You kind of have to replay the game, but it is a very alternate system.